Aloha, stewards of the land, humanitarians, and solutionists. I want to welcome all of you back to another dose of positivity. This is where I have the great privilege to interview change makers and thought leaders, health professionals, and social and environmental activists, all putting nature at the forefront of their endeavors. And it's a great, great honor for me to have today with me in the house, Pam Thompson. And the topic for this show is feminine leadership and navigating life's transformation. And for all you guys listening to this, feminine, we all have the feminine divine and the masculine within each of us. So be open-minded, open-hearted, and take it in as best you can to be part of the interconnection of the feminine and the masculine and the divine in both. So I want to just remind you guys, this is a live broadcast. We're restreaming on a few different channels, and this will be up as a replay on our YouTube channel, which we'll put in the chat and in the post below. And also we're up on Spotify and some other places that you might listen to podcasts. So while we're waiting for more guests to come into the room as they keep coming in, I'm going to be sharing as normal one of my a short reading from one of my books, which will tie in and lead us into this incredible discussion we're about to have with Pam Johnson, who is a leadership coach, a consultant, and a best-selling author. So all the way from Canada, and we have people in our audience that are out on a boat out to sea between Australia and Indonesia right now, and people from the East Coast, the West Coast, and the UK right now. So I'm super excited to welcome you all here to A Dose of Positivity. And just a reminder, this is live. If you have a question, put it in the chat, or if you want to come off screen, ask Pam or myself a question, just raise your hand and we will bring you live on A Dose of Positivity. Without further ado, I'm going to read something about leadership, about feminine. Whoa, Chester loves this chapter. Sorry. That's my male dog. From Living Like the Future Matters, The Evolution of a Soil to Soul Entrepreneur. And this is out of cycle 9 in the book. I know some of you have read this book, and it's called Fruiting. This is the beginning of the chapter, or the cycle as I call it. And I start with one of my own quotes. It's not necessary to struggle to reach the fruits of life. Nourish your soul and the beauty will follow, unquote. As a plant transforms from a flower to fruit, it goes through cycles from pollination to fertilization and finally into maturity. While the seeds develop, the fruit serves as a barrier and a protection from the external environment. If there are seeds, there will be fruits, grains, nuts, medicine, fiber, timber, and so much more. The seed is the child of the plant. It is the next generation. Like everything in nature, we must bear fruit and seed, which is birth, to survive. This is how life has lasted for billions of years. How we take care of the sacred womb of the mother reflects the outcome of life within and without. Nothing compares to the feminine power of birth. It nourishes a tree or life. It will protect a more fruitful yield. The harvest, the outcome is up to us. Just one apple seed will grow into a tree that can produce over 800 pounds of fruit a year. Most fruit trees are highly productive and bear fruit for 20 plus years, which is as long as many people's careers. With the fruits of our labor, we produce products and services to get returns on our investment and ROI. Long-lasting success depends on the seeds that we sow and how well we nurture our intentions. The fruitful years for me were mind-boggling, thrilling, and mountains of work. During the cycle of life, harvests were abundant. For years, I developed the cafe with as much conscious food as people could ingest. A healthy money mindset enabled me to adapt to rapid growth, the floods, and the droughts. I understood how to store seeds and grain for the winter and to beef up inventory for the busy summer season. With a solid trunk, I could confidently defend my principles and was very fruitful. Yet with boundless yearly harvests, there came increased demands, expenses, and unexpected responsibilities, which would lead to unforeseen consequences. At times, I doubted if my roots were strong enough to harvest the abundance. In spite of these doubts, my perseverance prevailed. And you guys who are listening to this live, and for those of you listening to the replay in the house, I have some very dear friends from Homer, Alaska, where I had this restaurant where I was harvesting and the abundance. And Brian Zach, who's on the line, was the head of the small business development department. And he was my mentor, my guru. He helped me with getting loans. He helped me with just staying the course. And today we have an incredible person to share her wisdom. Her name is Pamela Thompson. She's a BN MSc, which you'll have to explain, Pam, when you come on. And anyway, it gives me such pleasure to introduce you on the backs of Brian, who's here in the audience, and his amazing wife, who was the head of our chamber, and so many other incredible things that this woman has done in our community in Alaska. But Pam has the focus on you right now, which is my pleasure to introduce you, who has many experiences transitioning throughout her life, including her also living and working on 5 continents, separation and divorce, burnout, finding the love of her life. Pam is passionate about sharing her insights, her stories, her actionable strategies on how to navigate change. She helps people lead in uncertain times and to thrive in life and work globally through experimental workshops, speaking, and writing. Pam is committed to making a difference and is the founder of the national member-based nonprofit called Female Waves of Change Canada. And we're going to pop that link in there, because wait till you see this. Anybody who wants to, why retire when you can inspire and jump in? This is an incredible organization that she's part of. She is also the author of the #1 best-selling book, Learning to Dance with Life, a guide for high-achieving women. Karen, what are we going to do about that? And a recent international bestseller of the Exploits of Minerva, Reflections of 60-something Women. Here we are. And you can know more about her. We're going to have all her Pam's information in there, but I also want to let you know that we have many things in common. She too, like me, is a lover of nature and the water. She has been practicing yoga for 17 years. She studied mindfulness. She has 2 beautiful children, and she has done, and her list of things, which you'll find on our website, which she has done in her career, are most admirable. So Pam, without further ado, and after that introduction, I would love for you to come in and share with us how you got to this place in your life and where you are headed with it.
Well, thank you, first of all, Donna, for having me on your show. I'm really honored to be here, and thank you for that gracious introduction. How did I get to where I am, and where am I going from here? Was that the second piece you said?
Yes. Yes.
Where, I've been on the planet for a few decades now, so I've done a few things similar to yourself. I'd like to share that I knew from about 3 years of age that I was going to travel around the world and work with different people and cultures. And when I was really young, so that was about 3. And then when I was about 9 and 10, before I went to bed at night, I would pick a country that I was going to visit that night, that I would dream about visiting. And I really didn't know about journalism or a lot of possibilities that people could do. So I thought I was going to be a missionary at that point in my life. I'm not a really religious person. I'm more spiritual, but that's about all I know. You know, I used to teach, my mother taught Sunday school, right? Anyway, so all this to say is that I've been very interested in people and travel and cultures for many years. And I've also been in awe of nature. And I'm somebody who tends to, I don't even like to say this maybe, but I get bored fairly quickly. So in terms of working for other people, I would average about 3 years in a position and then, okay, next. And I know my parents used to say to me, Pam, if you'd stayed in one place, stay in one place for a while, you're really advanced up the ladder. And I'm like, well, I don't really want to stay here anymore. I've sort of got what I want to get from this organization. I want to move on. So fast forward, in the early 90s, I ended up starting my first business, and I've had 4 consulting and coaching businesses since then. And as you've mentioned, I've had the incredible opportunity to live and work doing management consulting in places like Afghanistan. I lived for 13 months in Afghanistan. I helped the Ministry of Public Health develop their first strategic plan and built the capacity of internal teams to do planning. I've managed big international development projects in places like Pakistan and Nigeria, having teams on the ground, and just have had some wonderful opportunities. And how did I come to, I believe that things happen for a reason. And there's been times in my life where I've been restless and I've said to the universe, okay, you know, what's next for me? And then some person would appear and some opportunity. Or I'd say, like at one point, I wanted to move from domestic to international consulting. And I'd think, who do I know? And I'd take them for lunch and say, who do you recommend that I get in touch with? So anyway, now I am where I am. As you had mentioned, I run a national nonprofit that's part of actually a global social movement. We're in 40 countries, and I'm ambassador for Canada. So I'm responsible for growing that community in Canada, and very honored to be. And I love to write. And as you've mentioned, I launched my second book, The Exploits of Minerva, recently, and I already have a couple of other books in my head. And I'm planning to open up more creative space this year to write another one. So fingers crossed. Yeah, so who knows? I feel the need to really step more into my creative space and not do so much. And as you know, you're a very creative person, Donna. We need space to create. We can't be doing all the time. So moving forward, I want to create more space to create, as well as continue with the responsibilities I have with Female Wave of Change.
So beautiful. Like I always say, why retire when we can inspire? But I'm jumping back because Afghanistan, Pakistan, and this work that you did working for the ministry, you know, so much of us people listening to this call will have never been to these places that have so much conflict. How did your work shape and be effective? Did you feel effective being a Canadian woman going to these countries? Tell us a little bit about that experience and how it shaped you moving forward.
That's a great question, Donna. And it's very interesting. One of the things that I really love about international work is that it's challenging, and yet you have to think in the moment and you have to be creative. And a lot of times, you know, you're kind of living on the edge, because you might have tried a process. Like, I'm a professional facilitator. You might have used a process in Canada, but if you're in Russia, you're not sure it's going to work. So you say, yes, it's going to work, right? Or if you're in Afghanistan. So anyway, how was I effective? I know I was in Afghanistan, because I used a very collaborative approach, and I built the capacity of teams as I moved forward. And I'm still in touch with some of the people. And actually, I was able to support some people to get out, and their extended families to get out. And they now are in Canada. And others I've supported through friends of mine who live in other parts of Canada to help them resettle. And I know that one woman who was on my strategic planning team in Afghanistan, for example, was promoted after I left Afghanistan, and she became the director of reproductive and child health. And she told me recently that she used the same process I used to co-create, if you will, the strategic plan for the Ministry of Public Health in Afghanistan. She used that same one to do a strat plan for her own department after I left. And she said, and it worked so well. So it made me feel really, really good that she continued on, right? And I also have people who are connected with me on LinkedIn, and they support me. And these are men and women who I've worked with in the past. Managing international development projects, for example, in places like Pakistan and Nigeria, as a white woman in, largely, most of my teams have been Muslim men. Where I could, I recruited Muslim women. However, not always as easy to recruit people who have high technical skills, depending on where you are. So initially a bit of a challenge, but what I found is, Donna, it doesn't really matter the color of your skin, the language you speak, the religion or ethnicity that you have, as long as you respect people and you come from your heart and you're authentic, it really doesn't matter. People respect you if you respect them. If you don't worry about, oh my goodness, how should I act because I'm here? You respect the culture. In other words, you scarf in places like Afghanistan, and you wear loose clothing and such like. So you respect them, but you don't have to be like an Afghan woman. You don't have to be different. So for me, the lesson is to always be authentic and treat people with respect, and try to always understand where they're coming from, because everyone's behavior has meaning for them. And although we might not understand it, there's always a reason why people act the way they do.
I just love that. I love you. You brought me right there, and you gave me goosebumps. Really, when I get goosebumps, that's always a good sign. To hear, you could be like, I'm always thinking, well, what can I do? You hear about these struggles happening in these other countries and the barriers that like my husband's word for 2023, we went around the room and everybody gave one word that they wanted to transcend into their bodies for every fiber of their being for 2023. And my husband's word was bridges. And it's just like these bridges, right? And when you cross a bridge, there's so many metaphors for that, like it's part of that transformation. And at the same time, like you brought into that conversation is that respect and that honor. And I just really honor and respect you for being a white woman, going over and coming up against things that most people would fear. So what gave you, I know I'm going kind of like off what we were going to talk about a little, but this is so intriguing to me. The word comes to me, which was my word for 2023, is courage. And I'm asking you, like, I mean, before when you went to get on that airplane and give your ticket, I'm going to Afghanistan. I mean, that takes courage, right? What year was that, and what was happening in the country at that time that was the impetus for you to be transported there?
I was in Afghanistan from mid-October 2010, the first time, till mid-November 2011. And then I went back on a shorter mission in 2015 for global affairs. I am someone who believes that life is an adventure to be lived to the fullest. And to me, I, for a number of years, had wanted to go to Afghanistan and work with women. And yet it's a war zone. And actually, when I went there, it was a war zone. I went to work each day, Donna, in a bulletproof vehicle with an armed Afghan driver, followed in convoy by a soft skin vehicle with 3 guys with AK-47s. That's how I moved to go to work. And I went in the VIP door, which is where the minister went in, so that I didn't have to go through where everybody else went through. When I was there were a lot of suicide bomb attacks. At one point, I was sitting in the ministry having lunch in the garden, such as they were, and with my friend Zaleha, who I spoke about, who's now in Ottawa. and there was an incredible bomb went off across the road. It was the first time I was so close to one, and it was the military hospital. And so a bunch of suicide bombers had gone in, and they went into this place and they basically killed Afghan people and their families and medical personnel. This was not targeting internationals, that one. But when I was there, there were also other places that were attacked, and people came out, and the wall, when you went into restaurants there, and you only could go into certain ones because our heads of security would have to screen them, you would be, there was an ante room, and there was guys with AK-47s, and they would guard the door, and then you would be in the room, and the men they'd pat down, the women they didn't, they would just check your purse, right? But even still, like in those, when I was there, certain ones, people came over the roof. When I left, I was visiting one of my sisters, breaking my trip, coming back through Ottawa on the way, and we're watching the 11 o'clock news. And one of the hotels that I actually had a workshop in a couple months ago is being attacked. And there's people on the roof, and it was just wild. And my sister's saying, "Pam, do you know this place?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I had a workshop there a couple of months ago." So it's kind of surreal. It actually is kind of surreal. All I can say is that I felt the calling to go there, and I felt the calling to do a lot of this work. And so I don't really go to fear. I go because you can't work in those environments and be in fear. When the suicide bomb went off, it was scary. And also when I was leading a national workshop at that point, near the end of my first mission, I was sitting in, at that point, my whole team were pretty well doing a workshop, and then I would intervene from time to time, but they were doing in local language. And the Ministry of Public Health, this was in another part of the city, we were doing this, and the Ministry of Public Health was attacked with IEDs, and there were snipers, and everybody's phones were going off in the room. And somebody stood up and said, "The Ministry of Public Health." I'm like, I had to hold the room. I'm not very big. I'm under 5'2". So here's me, little me, Canadian me, at the front, holding the room of more than 100 people, Afghans, right? And we're doing this capacity building workshop. But it was intense, and it was exciting at the same time. Yeah. And the relationships that I made there, like the Afghan people that I met there, it gets under your skin. And I've lived and visited many places and worked in many places, and there's just something very special about Afghanistan. It's hard to put my finger on, but I feel a real connection to the people.
Well, I just so honor you, the courage to build the bridges and to see that the legacy of your work is being carried out in the ministry. And I just even hearing, like, in your nervous laughter, like, because you have that, thinking back of it, but with someone sitting here and just envisioning like the scenes that you painted, it's very like I don't want to say I couldn't do it, but it wouldn't be my first choice. But how impressed and how necessary it is to have leadership roles, especially with the younger people who are coming forward, for you to be coaching and inspiring and encouraging them not to be fearful, that what they can be doing, or anybody really at any age, can go and make such a difference and have an impact in that. And out of all of that, like when you were leading this workshop, and then I really want to move on to why you wrote your books, okay? Because I think your books, people could garnish a lot more. But what was the main reason why they not only chose you, but what was the topic that you were bringing to them that intrigued them enough to have you in an armored car followed by 3 guys?
I was on an international roster, and so you have your CV up there, and I got this email inviting me to throw my hat into the ring for one of 3 high-level projects, senior technical advisor projects in Afghanistan. And this was August of 2010. And one of them had senior technical advisor, strategic planning and performance measurement. And that kind of had my name all over it, because I've done a lot of strategic planning. And I've also, in those strat plans, you need measures put in. And so I got this email, I had about a week, and then I talked to my partner and I said, "Will you support me to do this?" He said, "Totally, I will." Because I said, "I really feel that I'm called to do this." within a week, I emailed and I said, I'm interested. Within like a couple of weeks after that, I was part of the interview process.
The
Within
interview process for what though? What exactly did you do? That's what I'm trying to get at.
I basically helped the Ministry of Public Health develop their first strategic plan and built the capacity of internal teams to do strategic and operational planning. That's what I did.
Wow, that's a big mouthful. We'll have to read about that. But one of the other things that I wanted to get to before we jumped into your books, because I think this would help, and in your bio, you talked about divorce, separation, and all of these things that you have gone through. Like it's kind of like, the entrepreneur thing or something, like all the, do you feel like your work, and everything that you 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 did with the relationship roles, your roles in
Donna, I didn't hear what you said the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what's going on, but all I know is I'm back now.
Okay.
I wanted you to just touch upon before we jump into your books and the waves of change. Just about how your lifestyle and what you did with your career. You had mentioned in your bio about relationships and things like that. How your lifestyle and your commitment to doing your work affected your life. Your relationships and so forth. You wouldn't have mentioned.
Can you hear me okay?
Now I can, and I'm not sure. I think it's my computer is being weird, and I'm really apologize to everybody on the call. But go ahead and finish whatever you were saying.
Okay. My ex-husband is an international consulting engineer, so he traveled all over the world, and I felt I had to be the roots for the family. And because I always had my career, so I didn't just sort of fly all over and follow him. That said, at a certain point I did. So it enabled me, when our kids were 3.5 and 5.5, we ended up living in a little village in the mountains of northern Colombia, 3.5 hours drive north of Bogota. And I did voluntary work with a peasant farmer, not for profit. And that was really fulfilling. It was totally voluntary. And so I did that. And so that was really helpful to be married to someone. And I was married to him for 24 years, to someone who also loved to travel. And then I'd go with the kids and visit him when he was traveling. But then when our youngest was 17, I really wanted to do more of my own thing. And then we separated and divorced after that. So my time on my own, then I chose to do domestic and international work. And then my current partner, who I've been with for 16 years, he is very supportive of me. And I don't travel near as much now as I did before. But when I first met him, I was managing some international projects, and then I went to Afghanistan. So when my kids were really young, when my kids were really young, I didn't travel because I felt they needed the roots of one of their parents to be close to them. But then when my kids got older, I did.
Yeah, and you just did your life on your own terms, and your transformation was huge. So tell us, what is the content for your books, and share a little bit about them and why you wrote them and who they're targeted to and how they can help other people.
Thank you, Donna. Be pleased to do that. My most recent book, The Exploits of Minerva, Reflections of a 60-something Woman. That book I wrote because I've been into change for a number of years. And what I know to be true is that when we resist change, it has negative impacts on our bodies, our minds, our relationships, our businesses, if we have them, and our bottom line. So I wanted to share stories about women who had successfully navigated different life transitions that all of us, or many of us, go through. And what I also wanted to share, I feel like someone isn't muted, maybe. It's not you. Obviously, you can't be muted. It's not you, but I feel like there might be somebody else. Anyway, no worries. So in terms of the exploits of Minerva, I really felt that I wanted to share different people's stories, including some of my own, so that they would have an understanding of others going through something similar, so they would feel they were not alone. And also younger women would have a better understanding of their aunties, their mothers, you know, and even their friends. So what I did, the context is 6 women who've been supporting each other in a women's circle for more than 20 years through a variety of life transitions. And what I did is I interviewed friends and friends of friends and captured their stories and created composite characters, so you can't tell who's who. And then Minerva she's in essence a playful essence who came to me a bunch of years ago when I was cycling on a bike path in Eastern Canada, and I stuffed her down and she came back. So I started to write about her a couple of years ago. So she's partly autobiographical and she partly is this playful essence. And she does believe that life is an adventure to be lived to the fullest. So the actual story is told through her eyes. So
yeah. They sound like they could be your eyes too.
So that's that one. Do you want me to share the other one, Donna?
Yes, please. Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to share? I think we're good now. Do you want me to share a little bit about the other one?
Yes, please, please.
Okay, and the other one's called Learning to Dance with Life, a guide for high achieving women. That came out of me burning out in late 2012. It was about a year and a bit after I returned from Afghanistan. And then within a couple of weeks, the VP of a nonprofit that I had met through doing some other strat planning with another group in Canada before I left, invited me to throw my hat into the ring for something. And so instead of having a lot of downtime after I came back from Afghanistan, I ended up being senior health advisor on 7 projects in Asia and Africa to reduce infant and maternal mortality. And then the scope crept, and I was chairing a multidisciplinary stakeholder technical working group of 4 nonprofits. That was a full-time job in itself. It was just craziness. So in December, after almost a year contract working with them, they asked to extend my contract. And I said, I asked to sleep on the decision. And I awoke and I knew, I just felt like a lemon that had been squeezed dry. And I knew in that moment I had to say no, and I had to take some time off. So anyway, the long and the short is I thanked them for the opportunity. I said no, and they said, why won't you join us again part-time? And I said, because I want to create more balance in my life in 2013.
Yeah.
I had no idea what that looked like, what that meant. But then I started 2013, sleeping 10 to 13 hours a day, reconnecting with family and friends, and studying mindfulness and just chilling, really. And then
Love that. I know a lot of people who are listening to this who are on the live call can totally relate to what you're saying, including me. And that's why I actually wrote this book, Living Like the Future Matters, because I talk about my crash and rising like a phoenix and following your heart, right? What it is that really rocks your world. And when you do that, you can rise many times in our lifetime. It's not just here and now, it's ongoing.
totally.
Sorry about this connection. I gotta figure out what's going on with this connection. But while we're on this subject of just change and burnout to bliss, it's actually a course that I just wrote. But what is the difference really? And this is a good question, between a life change and a transition, and why really understanding this makes such a difference.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge William Bridges, who's an organizational theorist, because he's the one who I learned this differentiation from, and I use it in my work, and I think it's really important. He explains that a life change is something external and situational to us, something tangible that you can see, such as a separation agreement or a pink slip if you're let go from a job, whereas a transition is something internal and psychological. It's the internal psychological work that we do to readjust and reorient ourselves to our new external reality. So what happens, why this is important, is what happens, a lot of people, Donna, do the change and say, okay, I'm done now, I'm moving on. But they don't do the transition. They don't do that internal psychological work. And then what happens is they often keep repeating the same patterns in their lives and remaining unhappy and unfulfilled. For example, someone who for a number of times in their life goes after jobs for the money. Now, all of us want to make money, but if you keep doing that, you're not happy, right? So you need to take some time to find out what your passions are and then go after jobs or positions, if that's what you choose to do, based on your passions, right? Or likewise, a lot of people who have been married 3, 4, and 5 times, they end up remarrying someone who often looks quite similar to the previous spouse. And after the honeymoon phase, going through the same issues that they did with the previous partner, because they haven't taken the time to really understand who they are and what they want in their life in between the relationships. So you see this. And so it's incredibly important to understand this difference and then to take the time to walk through different the phases that people go through when they go through a life transition.
Let's do this. Would you do us the honor and take us through those phases and a little summary synopsis of what those phases look like or feel like?
Sure, and I'll preface it with that. I have actually created a 5-step art of change framework based on the metaphor life is a dance and underpinned by the belief that embracing change is a creative process that opens us up to new possibilities. So that's my frame, and then I draw on other people's work and then also have adapted different bits of it, right? So there are 3 phases that people go through when they go through a major life transition: an ending and a neutral zone and a new beginning. And with each phase, there's work associated. And regardless of the change that you're going through or the transition you're going through. So the work associated with the ending is letting go. So for example, if you have a really good job, maybe you've got an expense account, your own credit card, maybe even have a vehicle, depending on where you are in the scheme of things. And then you leave that, or you're let go if there's a downsize. So what do you let go of? You let go of your status, you let go of financial security, you let go of a whole bunch of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And then I've also added to that, and what are the lessons learned? So maybe you look at that and say, what did I really learn from that position? And going forward, do I want another one similar, or do I want something different, right? Mm-hmm. So identifying lessons learned and really understanding where you are and letting go of a lot of stuff. And also letting go in your body, because part of this process is getting out of your head and into your body, because as you know, and your work's on it, and a lot of the people probably on the call, if we don't take the time to process our emotions, they get locked in different parts of our body. And then they cause, chronic illness and all sorts of things moving forward. So anyway, so we've got this ending, letting go, identifying lessons learned. Then the neutral zone, like this is the space between the ending and the new beginning. The neutral zone is a scary place for a lot of people, because if you imagine that visual, you're taking the leap off the cliff and you don't know what's going to happen, right? You don't know where the net is that's going to catch you. Exactly. So this is a time when people are often very indecisive. So you may be in a relationship and leave somebody, and then you date for a while, for example, and you realize, oh, maybe he wasn't bad, or she wasn't so bad after all. And then you go back, but you're not really happy because you're settling, right? And then you have to really decide what you want and then take the leap. The other upside of this neutral zone is it's your creative space. And the work of this place is to envision and get clear about that relationship of your life, the life of your dreams, the relationship of your dreams, the job or business of your dreams, right?
Yes.
And then the third, the new beginning, the work associated with that is taking action toward what you've identified and dreamt about in the neutral zone. So that's in essence the three main phases and the work.
Absolutely love that. And I like to also refer back to everything, to nature. And in my book, I wrote 13 cycles versus 13 chapters, looking at the evolution from seed to sprout all the way up to a canopy tree. And I like your idea of those three places, but also realizing it's not just black and white and then a little gray in the middle, that there are all different, just like the colors of the rainbow. We're going to experience all kinds of emotions and all kinds of patterns of transformation, whether we want to admit it or not, throughout our lives. And acknowledging them with with gratitude, which always changes the attitude, that we have the opportunity to do this, right? To be in that third place that Pam's talking about, I think is really important. And to realize like there's nothing constant in nature except change. So accepting the transition, right? Not just the life change with the pink slip on the outside, but that transition is going to happen inside you, whether you admit it or acknowledge it or not. And I think what Pam's saying is by acknowledging that, we can leap further, faster, and safer with more courage and get where we're headed next at no matter what age. I mean, I'm in a whole new leap of faith right now. And it feels so alive and so exciting because I'm totally resonating what you're saying, Pam. And just supporting of all of that. And I think like, trying to get these messages across to somebody who's in Afghanistan or Pakistan, like this global group you're working with, the Waves of Change, which I'd love to spend a few minutes talking about because our time is coming towards the end. And I really want to give this some serious attention, because I think people on the call who are listening to this might really want to get involved with this, might want to take that transition period and dive into the female waves of change. So can you tell us more about how this movement started, how you got involved, and how you were named the ambassador in March of 2022 for this organization? I'd love to hear about that.
Well, I'd love to tell you about it. Female Wave of Change is a global social movement, and it was launched by a woman called Ingun Boel in the Netherlands in January of 2017. And I met her on LinkedIn in 2018, and we had a call, similar to what you and I did. We had a Skype call afterwards and realized we had some crossover points. And then I had a radio show in 2020 called The Art of Change, where I interviewed inspiring women leaders and change makers from around the world. And I interviewed Ingun. And I was totally amazed that within the time I'd spoken with her, her movement had grown to be in 20 countries around the world. It was totally organic. She started this movement because she created a foundation in the Netherlands because she was an engineer. And she felt that whenever she was sent on management or leadership training, there was nothing really related to women in management. And then she left in her early 40s. She left the corporate world and started to consult and did a lot of international work. And then about 15 years later, she came back and was called to do this workshop in the Netherlands. And she thought it was only going to be in the Netherlands. So she founded this foundation called Female Wave of Change. She changed her LinkedIn profile, and these women from all over the world got in touch with her and said, "Oh my goodness, this sounds awesome. How can we be part of this?" So that's a little bit about it. And then it was actually in March of 2020, I had an interview and I was named ambassador for Canada. But in December of 2020, I've officially incorporated Female Wave of Change Canada. And we believe in Female Wave of Change and Female Wave of Change Canada that feminine leadership holds the key to creating a better world, a more conscious, equitable, just, sustainable, and peaceful one. And when I speak about feminine leadership, I mean qualities that men can have and learn as well as women. This is just not about women having them, but they're things that qualities that we typically associate with the feminine, like creativity, collaboration, intuition, authenticity, emotional intelligence. And so we believe that the current systems and structures, the way they're tailored, are very much based on an old model that isn't working, that's largely masculine based, largely right brain, logical, all about results. And don't get me wrong, we still need the masculine part. However, what we want to do and what we're doing is increasing people's awareness of these other qualities. Because now, like, in order to solve the complex problems that we have in the world, Donna, you know all about this, like climate change and systemic racism, you just can't have one discipline or one organization solving them. You have to have multiple heads and disciplines around the table. You have to collaborate. And you can't be invested in one particular way of working. You have to create a vision and have people inspired to take action toward it, right? Anyway, so we have Women Leading in Change, which is a leadership development program. I'm actually honored to be on faculty. I just taught a class yesterday, and that happens about every 6 months that people can apply to be part of. And it has international faculty and international students from all over the world. And then I helped co-author the first 9 months or so when I was with Female Wave of Change, because I'm also part of their global strategy team. We co-authored it. We wrote a document called Reshaping the Future, Accelerating Change Toward a Better World. And in that document, there are 5 pillars we identified: education, environment, economy, health, and humanity. And different countries, now there's about 40 involved in Female Wave of Change, choose different things they want to do. And my vision is to create pods in Canada, and then to do projects and initiatives and retreats and workshops around those particular pillar areas. So in June of a year ago, I put a call out to our members and I said, I'd really like to co-create a project related to the environment, because COVID, I'm not an environmental person. I don't have, subject matter expertise in that area, but I was so amazed at how nature could heal herself and showed us that during COVID, like the dolphins returning in Venice, the air quality improving over China, for example, right? And so I thought, let's do it, And so I put a call out, and 6 of us ended up within less than 6 months co-creating the Mother Earth Ambassador Project, which is an experiential outdoor education program for girls ages 9 to 12 to teach them how to become ambassadors in their home, Mother Earth ambassadors in their home schools and communities. So this crosses over a lot with your work, and we talked about this because we teach the girls about the mother tree and link the mother tree and her qualities and what she does in the forest with feminine leadership qualities. We also talk about eco grief and how to process it, which is a big thing for a lot of people in the world. I'm excited to share that we just actually had worked with a curriculum development consultant to flesh out all the areas that we'd identified. And so we have a curriculum, and we're now in the process of looking for some more sponsors to actually fund the pilot that we want to happen starting from early May to early June. And then after the pilot, we want to then have this implemented through various partners across Canada and beyond. So this is not just something, we're not implementers. We've co-created it, and now we want to pilot it, and then we want to enable other people to roll it out in different places, because we believe it has relevance to girls all over the world.
Yeah, you need to get me on your team. I'll love to help. 50 years of nature attention and stewarding of the earth, and starting projects in the environment back in the 70s for kids. I'd love to talk to you more about that, because that's so right up my alley. You're right. I would absolutely love to hear more about it. I'm sure everybody on this call would love to hear more about it. And you guys, everything that we're talking about, all the links So you can get a hold of and after work or consulting or coaching, and also this waves of change, how you can get involved in this, doing something like this in your community. And is it all women involved in this, or do you have men
No,
colleagues?
we actually have men involved as well. And there is, yeah, we don't have so many men involved. It is targeting women, but there are men, some brave souls who are part of it and also part of the global teams. The other piece I wanted to say, if I may, just for a minute, is we have monthly meetings with featured guests that we that I and one of my board members co-create with the featured guests, and they're very interactive, and we have breakouts so people get to know each other, but they also get to dive deeper into the conversation. And people who become members, some join to support us and don't come to hardly any meetings. Others come to all meetings. Some want to get really involved, some don't. So we welcome all sorts of folks on the continuum, because we don't get any funding. This is a total labor of love. I don't get any funding from the parent, and I'm not paid. So, but I believe very strongly, and I'm committed to this movement.
Yeah.
Movement.
So beautiful. So grateful. And just before you have some closing words, I just like to share a couple things with everybody who's listening right now, because it's really great to back down. We have next week's guest. You're going to love him. His name is Daniel Arn, and he'll be diving deep into the topic of spiritual prosperity, really redefining success and wealth, and what it really means to be able to do the kind of work that someone like Pam Thompson's doing, and so many other people who have been on A Dose of Positivity. I encourage you all to go back, listen to the replays on YouTube. Tel will put into the chat our YouTube channel and also our Spotify channel, so you can go back and hear, and you notice how it all came back to Pam's putting nature kind of at the forefront of her endeavor, realizing whether you're in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Canada, out in the middle of the sea between Indonesia and wherever you're headed, Bali, the Zacks are on the line here, out in the middle of the Aryan Ocean, I think it was, right? No matter where we are touching the Pachamama, the Mother Earth, and our work and what we do and how we walk on this earth makes a difference. And living like the future matters has never been more important. Living, eating, and working like the future matters. So I want to encourage you all to share this episode with friends who you think might benefit. Share Pam's websites. Also, if you're not a part of our Facebook group, we put incredible content up there, and you're welcome to share anything that's positive, because it's a positivity Facebook group. It's called Holistic Health, Nature Therapy, How to Live Like the Future Matters. So we'll put that link in there as well. We'd love to have you in the community, and we really appreciate every one of you who comes back week after week to the live episodes. Sorry for the little bit of internet disruption there, Pam, and a few barking dogs. But then we know this is live. This is candid camera. This is the real deal. So again, I want to thank everybody so much for being here, and hope we'll see you next time. And anybody who wants to stay in after the call, after Pam gives some closing words, or would like to come off, like tell, I'm afraid to look at my chat, but are there any questions, or does anybody like to raise their hand and ask Pam anything, or have anything to contribute to the conversation? We would be most grateful and open to your words and questions.
Yeah, Mama Donna Leslie from our Facebook Live actually asked, because she said that she's stuck in the neutral zone.
Oh, she's stuck in the neutral zone.
Yeah. So
Okay.
any advice from that?
Okay, well, that's a great question.
Awesome.
Okay. One of the ways that we can reduce fear is to do things like spend time in nature. That's one way to do it. The other thing is to get out of our heads and into our bodies. So there's a number of mindfulness exercises we can do. Mindfulness walking meditation, body scanning. I don't mean to plug my book, but in Learning to Dance with Life, a guide for high achieving women, I go through their 7 keys to what I call creative living. And in that book, I talk about a number of practices that you can use. The other thing is you may need to revisit the first, the ending, and really get clear on what you need to let go of. And not only write it down, but physically let it go from your body and really believe that you have let it go. And you may have to grieve as well, because we can't move forward unless we do the work. I don't mean to be scary about this, but it's, yeah. And if you're stuck, a lot of times it means that you need to revisit that time and also focus on the vision. And a lot of us are scared, but if we focus on the vision, and it helps you be really positive, and so it helps take you out of fear. When you create a vision and you focus on it and you believe in your bones that you will be supported to get it or to reach it.
Beautiful. And I love that. And put in the link to the last our last article that I wrote, put that in the link. I think I have 5 keys in there that'll help Leslie and everybody on the call break through that. And a lot of that has to be doing with self-empowerment and that internal work that Pam was talking about earlier, not being fearful of looking deep inside. You guys check out that article. I think you'll find it very, very dear to this conversation and help you, Leslie, get flying fearlessly to the other side by letting go. Pam, I love that. That was really, really awesome. And again, you guys, I just think you're awesome for showing up. Anybody who wants to stay on, we're gonna actually, you know what? We're live. We have a small group. I'm just gonna bring you all outside, and if anybody has any more comments, there's one of this is one of my 4-legged friends.
May I just say will I have an opportunity to thank you for having me on? I just wanted to thank you for having me on.
Oh yeah. You know, we're still on. We're gonna stay live because it's such a gorgeous day, and I know.
Oh my goodness.
Who are in our Facebook group right now, who are watching this, who aren't on the call, because we restream 3 different places, so we get people coming on there. There's Sadie and Chester and Brian and Karen. There's your home away from home. They come and they stay with us quite often in the winter, and we miss them dearly. But yeah, and it's really interesting talk about transformation, Pam, and everything that you're saying, just how everything in nature, it is going on here right now on the Big Island. We've got, active volcanoes going off simultaneously. And Maui, you can see in the distance in the shadow, because there's a little vog up here in North Kohala. And, you could say it's fearful to live here on an island or in Homer, Alaska, where I used to live, where Brian and Karen live part-time. There's active volcanoes going off all the time, and there's a lot of this shadow work or things that are happening in the background, keeping us, other people's messages, other people's projections on who we should be, what we should do, and why. And just everything you brought to this conversation, and I'm sure that people were going to find in your books and getting to know you more, are so in alignment with what we both of our work. And I always like to say, compost what doesn't serve you, nourish what does, and what we focus on grows. So when we take care of the gardens, they grow, and we have to think about our internal gardens and what it means. So many people are so good at taking care of other people and other plants and other animals or anything but themselves. And in order for Leslie and all of us to get through that 3rd zone or that middle zone that Pam was talking about, it's finding that self-worth and finding the time for self-care and self-love. And even if it means, like Pam, leaving her job or having this opportunity to be promoted, and like Karen, you walking away from the chamber job, and we know we know what's right for us. We internally know. And so but why, I mean, that is the big question. Why don't we oftentimes not listen to the wisdom of our own souls? And a lot of people will go into church or out into nature or figure that out. But sometimes, we need to preach to ourselves too, and hear from ourselves, that goddess and that God within each and every one of us, that gives us that spiritual prosperity that Daniel Arn is going to be sharing with us next week. You guys are gonna love him. I think he actually, Brian and Karen, I'm pretty sure it's Bali. He lived in Bali for like 18 years. I'm 90% sure it was Bali. And so he is going to be talking about his experience there and this kind of temple that he built where people came for self-reflection and self-healing and transformation. So Pam, you might really enjoy meeting him too. So does anybody want to come off mute now? And Brian and Karen, I'd love for you to just turn your camera around and show everybody where you are at. These guys are literally out in the middle of the ocean and having a reception, probably better than me. Come off mute. And anybody who's listening live right now and you don't want to, you can turn off, but this is pretty cool where they are. They're on the ship headed towards Bali, and it's really cool, really cool. And then Sandra, I'd love to say hi and welcome you. I don't know if I've met you yet before. Have you been on the show before? Thank you, Brian and Karen, for sharing this. This is so awesome.
I haven't been on your show before. I joined as I know Pam, and I've been taking part in and enjoying Pam's Zoom calls a lot, and with her books. And yeah, I'm definitely a follower, and I look forward to next Thursday.
That's so great. Well, pop your email.
Daniel.
Pop your email in the chat and we'll send you the newsletter, and it'll have this replay on there as well, because every week you get introduced to the new person and then you get the replay as well. And any other really cool events, it's not a salesy thing at all. And I write an article that is in alignment with who my special guest is.
Good to see you, Sandra. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, you as well. I always learn something new about yourself, and I always get some new ideas, and that neutral zone kind of resonated a little bit.
Well, thank you. I'm happy it did.
Yeah, it's amazing how much we're all playing in that neutral zone, and it's that fear thing, that fear factor, right, Pam, that, we just need to, you're one of the most fearless women I have had on the show.
Or crazy, or one of the crazier ones, right? Some people would say crazy.
Adventurous.
I honorable and really courageous is the way I see you, and I'm so grateful to know you, and Karen, I wish you would come off and say hi to everybody, because you're gonna love to, and Brian. I mean, Brian, like I said early on, I mean, he was like my mentor through my restaurant career and living in Homer for all the businesses I did. And Karen has done incredible things. Karen, say hi to everybody.
Hello, I'm in phase 3, and I'm in 3.
Lucky you.
I'm good in 3.
Living the dream.
I'm good in number 3. Yes. Yeah, Brian's still in 2. Yeah, he's in 2. He's a high achiever, and I'm a been there, done that.
Yeah, but you're in like you're in 3 because you got to nurture the high achiever, and he needs you to achieve. It's a big role and responsibility.
Yes, that's true. But the good news is I didn't know I could go from 2 to 3. And I had a mentor in Homer, Patrice Krant, that retired from Coca-Cola after 30 years at age 60 or no, 58. And every time I saw her, I'd say, now, how do you do this? Or how are you transitioning? You know, I was like, tell me about it. How did you do this? You know, I'm afraid I can't do this. And so she was my mentor. And I have to say that I when the time came and you're ready and you flip that switch, then you're done. So I'm in the rediscovery and enjoyment stage and just at peace. So Brian's always mischievous. So yeah. So at some point when you decide to do that, when you're an overachiever, it's really a nice place to be at peace with what you've done and where you are in life. So you have a different role now. I have nieces and nephews to mentor. And that's where I am right now, is supporting my family and the new generation coming up and being for them as an aunt and a professional, being for my family. So, and this one over here too.
That sounds.
Well, I think the international that we learned today, what we learned about international travel today is very interesting as well. And we learn a lot by doing that.
Yeah, we're on the ship with 28 nations, Chinese, Indian, Vietnam, Canadian. I mean, 28 nationalities are on this cruise.
Wow.
And we're having dinner with them, interacting with them. And so it's part of that understanding.
Wow.
Well,
That sounds great. Sounds like you got a book in you guys. Yeah. Which
But we love to hear the books come out of all.
yeah, I'm curious, like being on a boat with 28 different international travelers, like is there one nation under God? Is there one nation of people or people that you're really resonating with, like how Pam was talking about the Afghani people? Are you finding connections along the way from any particular country that you feel akin to?
Is there anybody we connected with? A lot of Aussies. Yeah. They're our new friends.
Yeah, they just met 2 days ago and they're about ready to get married.
Oh, nice.
I
Congratulations.
know. What's really fun? Oh, that's right. There are children, a lot of children on the trip because it's holiday here right now in Australia, New Zealand. It's summer, so they're on break. And it's so neat to see an Indian boy walking with the Aussie boy, a teenager that's just connected. And the children of different nationalities, they play in the pool and they're just connecting and they're just being kids. And it's just so endearing to see them together. That's maybe the next generation that's not going to be so that they're going to have a connection with another, they're already learning about other countries and that they're good people, not what you hear on the news. So the children are connecting here, and that's really from all over the world. And that's really been nice to see.
Yeah. Wow, that is like probably the most heartwarming thing I've heard in a long time, just to see that and to know that. And like, it's kind of like what Pam was saying, how earlier in the discussion, it shouldn't be about all those other things. And, the further we get away from the old oligarchy white male, dictatorship, fascism. But sometimes I think we're moving closer to that in some social groups. But I'm loving more seeing, and then you'll notice I interview both men and female, but a lot of the female women who are rising, and they're the nurturers, they're the ones who see the children at play, and who are helping to bridge these gaps. And you taking the role of being auntie is the noblest role there is. It's just not been regarded as such. And a lot of times, I even write about it, it's just like the most, of all the careers and everything I did, and I've done a lot of things, you guys know that. The most important thing I ever did was raise my son. And I look at like people who have 2 or 3 or more children, and they're each so uniquely different, like each business, and they each require a different spreadsheet, a different balance sheet, a different equation to make sure that they run smoothly and that they don't go bankrupt. And so it's up to the mother to keep that bank full, right? And what better career or position to be in the world and to be honored for that motherly role. And I've never understood how that has been so undervalued. And hopefully seeing these children playing together and having these international relationships forming, and bringing, not seeing, like Pam was saying, the color of their skin, their religious, but seeing people for the intrinsic value that's in each of us, which hopefully is love, right? And caring and compassion and nourishing for the next generation. And so that's why I love a dose of positivity, because we can leave on a final note. We can talk about these things with kindred spirits, and really recognize our place as humans, as beings here doing the work that we do. And I'm just so grateful to you, Pam, for coming on, and Brian and Karen. This has meant the world to me. And Sandra, to meet you, make sure you put your email in there. And we are going to, I'm gonna, break down now, or go off. I have a few things I got to do. But I want to leave you with this and welcome you all to come visit us. Karen and Brian, why don't you come on your way home? Just drop in from Bali. Oh my gosh, I miss your fish. I miss you guys so much. So does anybody have any parting words or anything they want to say before we head out for the rest of the day or evening, wherever you are?
I didn't realize you were in Hawaii, and something about Hawaii always resonates with me. I've been to Maui twice, so now I have a goal, a vision for Maui, or for Hawaii. Thank you.
I'm on the Big Island, so you must come. This is where it's at right now, with the volcanoes going off, the feminine divine energy recreating transformation and rebirth is happening here. You can really feel it. She's having many children right now.
It's been calling me, and I've been waiting for something to show up. So I will pay attention and follow through. Yes.
Yeah, well, we'll wait. If you put your email in there right after this thing, I'll send, we'll send you an email of how to get in touch with us. And
thank you.
Whatever island you come on, but we don't really know the other islands like we know the Big Island. So
okay, it looks beautiful where you are. Thank you. Thank you, Pamela, as well today.
Nice. You're welcome. Nice to see you, Sandra. Take care.
Yeah, thank you for coming, and thank you, Pamela, for bringing her to the show. It's really been an honor.
Bye, Brian.
Karen's there too. You're gonna say
bye,
bye,
Karen. Bye, Brian.
Thanks so much again, Dawn. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. You're doing some amazing work here.
Yeah, well, so same to you. You are incredible, and I want to get back in touch with you personally for the Waves of Change, and especially this environmental education you're doing with the 9 to 12-year-olds. Count me in, whatever I can. Okay. Well, we're gonna leave, and much love to you all, and thank you everybody who's stayed on live and to listening to the replay. Big love and aloha.
Bye-bye.